sit down where you can. I'm glad they gave me a 50-foot microphone cable because I plan on walking around the room. It's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna sit because if I sit, I'll fall asleep. I've just recently gotten off a plane from Australia, so I don't know what day it is. I do know that I'm in the state of Tennessee because that's my home. There you go. All right, so for those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Eric Stuart. I play a lot of roles that you might know. I direct a lot of shows that you might know as well. And I like to do this panel as part of my con experience for you guys because I've been in the business for a very long time. I'm a very old man. But this is a chance for you to ask me questions besides just what's my favorite line and stuff like that. That's all great. You can, at my table, you can ask me that too. But this is also a good chance for you guys to, and you're done. This is a good chance for you guys to ask me a question or two about the business, how to get into the business, how the whole voiceover business works, or even beyond just the voiceover part. I also do a panel on directing and adaptation, but this is a chance to pick my brain. So let's do some Q&A. What do you think? Yeah. All right, good. You can all see me, right? Because if I sit down, what's going to happen is I'm going to lie down, and then that'll be the end of that. All right, so you just have to talk loud for me. So who's got a question? Yeah. Okay, so agents to get into there. Can one of you guys in the back do me a favor? We can keep letting people in, but let's close the door so that we can just get a little bit more quiet. Will you guys just shut that door for me? Thank you. I appreciate that. There's an old joke about if you want to drive a truck, you need to be a teamster, and if you want to be a teamster, you have to spend a lot of hours driving a truck, right? So it's the same kind of thing. It's like, yeah, having an agent would be fantastic. But an agent sometimes doesn't want to talk to you unless you've been working, right? So, in the grand scheme of voice acting, it would be great to have an agent. It would be great to be represented by someone. In the beginning, sometimes people will just freelance with people so that you kind of give them a chance to see if you can book any work, and they don't have to really sign you so that they don't feel like 100% responsible to constantly send you things. They're testing you out, you're testing them out. You can also do it without an agent. It's harder. We all like to have someone else be the mouthpiece to say how great we are. Unless you have a huge ego, not like anyone I know. It's better to have someone else say, this guy would be great for this role. He really is a fantastic actor, rather than saying, I'd be really great for this role, right? But how do you do that? Well, one of the things about the business is we have a calling card, a business card, which is called a voiceover demo. And that demo consists of examples of what you can do. So now I have a demo that's cut together of pieces from real commercials and things like that I've worked on, and it's a little sampler. But if you haven't done anything for real, you need to go and get that produced so that it sounds like you've been doing it forever. Not, I recorded it in my house, on my computer, and I used the same kind of stock music underneath everything, because then that person listening to it is going to judge you on production and say, well, this guy's probably never worked before, so I don't know if I want to take a chance with him. But if your demo reel sounds like the same production value of my demo reel, even if the spots are not ones you really did, but they sound like you could have done them, then I'm listening to you as an actor. And that agent is who gets that demo reel, the submission. You go, hey, can I send this in? Some agents say, we don't take unsolicited material, which means, of course, you have to have somebody you know, helping you get to, and as I said, it's like the truck driving thing. But some do. So if you have that one chance to make a great first impression, your demo reel better be as good as my demo reel is production-wise. So finding someone who can coach you, who can work with you, who knows what they're talking about, to fool the listener into creating this 1 minute and 10-second unbelievable example of what you do. Now, there's tricks to that too. When you listen to the radio commercials sound like they're nice and warm and they're doubly compressed and they're just in your face, but there's this warmth, right? Because there's no visual stimulation. They can't be too annoying, or else you change the channel. So on the demo reel, those spots that were radio might be mixed a certain way. And then the TV is brighter. So those might be EQ'd a different way. And those are little tricks of the trade. So when you cut these things next to each other, it sounds like there's this, wow, what great range. But you're really doing the same sort of stuff. So that's, the long answer to your question is, it's better to have an agent because that is helpful, but to get an agent, there are many, many steps you need to take to get to that point. But you can still do things on your own, even with a great demo reel. You can submit your great demo reel to people, and they might, you know.
As a quick follow-up
Yep.
to that, as far as the characters in your demo reel,
Right.
should you have your own characters thought up and created and worked out and fleshed out for your demo reel, or should you just start coming up with voices?
That's really based on what you're able to really do. Now, here's a question for you guys. You guys know me as a animation voice actor, but the majority of the work that I have done that has paid my bills has been a commercial voice actor, doing commercials where I talk like this, where I'm not doing funny voices, okay? And the funny voices that I do on the shows are still creations that I came up with. I'm not impersonating people, I'm doing hybrid things like that. If I do funny voices on my demo reel, my voiceover demo reel, it's got to encompass all the genres that I'm really trying to go for. Now, there are animation reels, there are narration reels, and there are voiceover demo reels, which pretty much mean commercial. On my commercial reel, I have examples of funny voices I do for the hit shows like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! But if you didn't work on a show like that, then you would use a funny voice in a commercial, like Snuggle Fabric Softener or something like that. Use a funny character reading commercial copy, because the people listening to your demo reel 75% of the time will be looking for advertising voices, not cartoon. It's nice that you can do that, but sell a product with it. And if you walk into like a session with someone who's going to teach you and coach you, like if I were coaching you, I would say, hey, what can you do? What accents do you do? What characters do you have? Let's pull copy that can support that. And you will also find a lot of voice actors will tell you, I can do 150 different characters. Yeah. Maybe Mel Blanc, maybe even Billy West. They can do that. But the majority of us don't do that. I do about 10 really different voices and then hybrids of the things in between. You know, a little bit more of a Southern accent or a little more of an English accent. So if you don't really do something great, don't suggest that for your demo reel. Oh, I do a great British accent. Really? Is it really great? Is it a character of a British accent, or is it really legit? Because if it's not really legit, I know 20 guys that do it better than you do. Leave it off the reel. Only what you really do well. The reel is short. It should be a highlight of your best work. Good question. All right, yeah.
How do you get started out being a voice actor? How did you get started out, and how are other ways to get started?
So the question is, how did I get started, and how do you get started being a voice actor? Well, my story is a little strange, but I will say it all comes down to one thing in particular, and that is still acting. So if you're in school, or you're even in regional theater, things like that, the interaction of director and actor is very important, even though it might not be voice acting. Okay, to still understand that dynamic of how to be directed. That's a big thing. But unfortunately in this world, so much of our opportunities are because of who we know, not what we know in the beginning, all right? I worked at a tennis club. I was a tennis pro in the summers. Okay, I know, look at me, right? But seriously, I just had shoulder surgery, so I can prove to you that I was a tennis pro because they told me it was from serving the ball too hard that I wore away what was in my shoulder. But anyway, one of the members knew that I was a musician. I just left college to play music, and said, "Hey, we need a new I own a recording studio. We need a new assistant. Do you want to come interview?" So more deals are made on the golf courses and tennis clubs and things like that socially. You know, even in the supermarket, if you run into somebody, then if you actually make a meeting and sit down with them, a lot of the times, unfortunately. But this is my story, but I have a way to not have my story work too. So anyway, I went into the studio thinking that they did music, because that's what I did. And I'm like, it's gonna be great. I'll make coffee, take the garbage out. This is great. Okay, they've got stuff going on in the studios. Haven't seen any bands in here yet, though. When are the bands coming in? So I said to my boss after about 2 weeks working there, "So when do we start recording the bands?" And she's like, "We don't record music here. We only do voiceovers. I mean, we do a jingle or two, but mostly just do radio and TV commercials." And I'm like, someone can just have a job doing that? So what our job was, we were a production studio where major advertising agencies would hire us to cast and produce radio and TV commercials. So I started as the coffee guy. I worked my way up to the assistant casting director, to the casting director, to a producer, till I finally ran the studio for 10 years. And throughout that entire time, I was directing, and also I was casting. So if I had a 2-character spot, radio spot, guy and a girl, 10 guys, 10 girls coming in for my audition, great. I get a phone call towards the end of the session, "Hey, that last guy can't make it." So now I've got a girl waiting to read with somebody and there's no one in the room. So I say, "Come on in, I'll read with you." And I would read with them, but I wouldn't slate my name, which is going like, "This is Guy Eric Stuart," so they know on the tape who it is. I would never slate it because it was me, casting director. But then the clients would say, "Yeah, we really like the last guy, but we don't know who that is." And I'm like, "Well, that was me, I'm just filling in." "Yeah, but we liked what you did." So I kind of fell into voice acting, and at that time I was offered a big rock and roll tour. And so I said to myself, what can I do coming and going out of town, not having a day job while I'm working around music? And it made sense to be a voice actor because I could do that anywhere I could find a microphone or a studio, but also I could leave town, come back, and do that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how I fell into it. From the other side of the glass to then becoming the actor. But I will tell you, there's 2 ways that you can get your foot in the door without having to be a tennis pro. The lost art of being an apprentice is number 1. So where do you think that they record voice things in town? I'm not talking about music stuff, I'm talking about commercials. What do you think? Do you think radio station? Right? How about ad agencies? They also have in-house casting. So, if you can find a way to get an internship in either one of those types of businesses, like, let's say radio station. I'm not saying go in and looking for a job where they pay you, because here's the thinking. This is how it works. "Hi, I'm really interested in radio. I want to be a voice actor. I love the whole audio business. I've got about 6 hours a week, 7 hours a week I can spare. I'd love to intern. The only thing I ask for in return is that I get to see what you do. So I'm not just always in the kitchen, but I actually get to see what's going on in the booth. That's all I want to do." And so the radio station says, we don't have to pay this person, and they're going to make coffee, and they're going to do all this stuff, and okay, that's pretty good, and we just have to keep them, in the booth every once in a while. They can see what's going on. I'm sure we can work that out, right? Because you're volunteering your time, but you're telling them you have a passion for this business. So now what happens is they know you want to be a voice actor, and you're still working on that while you're in the studio, right? Commercials come into radio stations all the time. Hey, we just got this spot. We got to get this thing produced tomorrow. It's got to go on the air for the station. They're looking for a young woman to read the announcer at the end. What's your first name?
Jillian.
Jillian?
Yeah.
Doesn't Jillian want to do voice acting? Let's give her a shot and let her read this. You're there. I don't have to make a phone call. It's easy. You do it well. Then we've got a young girl on staff that can do this stuff for us. And that's how it's done. That's the tennis pro moment. But the key is to go to these places with, I want to learn. You wanted to be a great carpenter. You would find the best carpenter in town and say, can I sweep up when you're done in return for just watching how you build cabinets? Right? Because then he would say, or she would say, I got a gig that I can't do. Could you install that kitchen? Because I know you've been helping me in the shop. So that's how you do it. It's the immediate, pay me immediately that will prevent you from getting that foot in the door. You just have to think big picture. And that's what happened with me. I got a job at the studio. They didn't pay me a lot of money in the beginning. But then I took over the studio and doing commercials. 10 years down the line, I was doing very well, thanks to, taking a low-paying job in the beginning. So good question. All right, what else we got? In the back.
Yeah, how do you actually come out with your characters? Like, how do you whenever you are handed a particular character,
Right.
how do you develop that person? Like, do you kind of read through the script and have to kind of develop them through their emotions, or?
It depends on the project. So we're talking about how do you find your characters. When we're doing dubbing and replacing dialogue for a show that's already been done, let's use Pokemon for an example. The creators might say, we want you to match the sound of the voices. None of us spoke Japanese, but they might say, we want you to sound like this, the register, which you listen, it's like music, and you go, okay, it's got a deeper voice, it's kind of gravelly, okay, that's what I'm doing. If it's a brand new thing, and they might just show a picture of it, like a prelay show, which is a show that we record the voices first and then they animate, we might look at it and go, okay, big tough guy, yeah, heroic type, okay, I know what I'm going to do. See, I call my voices my little bag of tricks. I've got a little bag of tricks. I know, there's only a certain amount of voices I'm going to go reaching into that bag of tricks and pull out for the starting point of a character. If it's a hero and I go, I've got to be cool, I've got to be strong, I've got to be tough, whatever, or is he a jerk? Does he want to rip your arm off? It's like, there's only a certain amount of voices in my little bag there. And when you choose it, especially if it's in an audition, you make that choice knowing what you've chosen to do so that the director can go, I hate that. I like the attitude, but the voice, no. Let's raise his register so that you know what you just did so you can change it. And then sometimes they have an idea. They want it Southern, they want it New York, they want it whatever. I came up with the voice for Meta Knight because there was no Spanish character on any of our shows. And I thought that Antonio Banderas would be a fantastic voice to do. And so I said, let's make him Spanish. Now, he has no lip flap. He's just got the helmet, right? So you can do anything you want. So sometimes, if you've worked enough on these shows, you can sort of make a suggestion. But it really varies to what you're doing. And as I said, most of the time, it's just me talking like this. So then it's really just attitude that I'm looking for more than what's the voice that I want. But good question. All right, yeah.
Okay, so within a studio, how do you kind of get a chemistry with co-stars or whatnot?
Well, I rarely work with another actor in the booth, and it's not because I'm such a jerk, it's because we dub one at a time. Sometimes we'll do multiple character reads, like with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we'll have the 4 turtles would be in there together, but not the rest of the cast. I directed Viva Pinata, and I recorded every actor one by one individually and then assembled the dialogue. They were never in the booth together. I built it like a radio play. But the chemistry is between you and the director. And as a director, I've learned from the years of doing this and it's the way we interact with each other. If you meet somebody for the first time, you sort of have to get a sense of like, well, is this person someone that I need to be gentle with when I discuss things? Or can I be aggressive with them? Or can I kid around with them? Are they a serious person? It's the same kind of dynamic when it comes to directing and acting, that special bond. A good director makes it very clear to that actor that they're on the same team. It's not my way fighting with the actor. You see all of these great stories in Hollywood where like they're getting in fist fights and stuff like that. You can disagree, that's fine. But the key to that dynamic is trust. I've worked with many actors where I can say this to them after they read a line. That was really good, but next time let's try one with talent. And they'll laugh. And they'll go, oh man, you're right, that was terrible. Let me try that again. And then I've worked with ones where I've had to say, after 50 takes of the same one line, okay, that was really good. That's one I could use. I'm going to put that one here. I just need a safety. Let's try to get one more. And just let's try to tweak the energy just a little bit, where I really like to say, you are awful. And if you could just get this one phrase out, I can make magic in the studio, but I need your voice to start with. So but it's still a teamwork effort. You know, they might shrink up like a little flower if you yell at them, and then you're never going to get what you want, right? So that's the art of that dynamic. And as an actor, you can be confident and say, this director is giving me direction that I totally disagree with, but it's my job, I'm getting paid, I've got to do this. If you have a nice enough relationship with them, you can do it, after you do it their way, you can say, can I just try one? I have an idea. Would you mind if I tried one, my suggestion? Some directors might go, yeah, let me see what you got. Okay, we're still going to go with the one we have. Or they might go, hey, that's actually better than what we were doing. And that's also a matter of confidence for the director. A good director can say that they're wrong, or that other idea is better, and not, I'm not taking your idea. Thank you very much. So it's by the people. You really have to judge it individually, one-on-one. Yes. And in terms of doing like a 2-character radio spot, it's give and take. It's like if I do something, you should be picking up on the energy and give it back to me. Who's on first kind of stuff. That's magic. You know, that's either you got it or you don't. I've worked with people that do not have the timing to do 2-character anything. You know funny people and you know not funny people. So like, you know my dad and you know my mom. Okay, anyway, what other questions do we have? Yes?
Now, if you want to learn like an accent level,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say, like say because the British accent is common, what would be a good way to learn that?
Well, that's a good question because that's like saying I want to have a Southern accent. How many different Southern accents do we know, right? You can either be from Tennessee and Kentucky or even different parts of Tennessee and things like that, right? So you really have to study the specific of it. If you booked a play where you had to be from England and you were like, it's from London, it's proper, I'm upper crust, or am I Cockney? Where all of those, you have to fine tune that first and go, what am I trying to learn? And there are dialect coaches, and there are even recordings and things that you can listen to study that go through phrases. But accents are so, especially if you're trying to play it legitimate, they're so tough. You really have to listen to all of the nuances. But it's like books on tape kind of stuff. It's like go to sleep with the stuff playing in your head. But there are specific dialogue coaches when actors need that. The roles, as I said, the roles that I play, unless it's something like when I do my Brooklyn stuff, which of course I just sound like all of the guys I grew up with. So that's legit. And I've done audiobooks where I've had to play like Civil War, characters where, you're going like, well, what part of the South is this guy from? Okay, let me go listen to some examples so that it sounds legit, and that's a lot of work. But that's the best way to do it. There are specific people that can coach you on that. And also those that can get you to remove any regionalism you might have where you're from, so that you don't sound local, but you sound national, so that you can read a script for different parts of the country. Commercials, we're talking commercials, not cartoons. that you can read an ad where you're the voice of a company and it can run everywhere and not ring of, oh, that's a Southerner. Because that's going to pigeonhole you into one demographic. I mean, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I don't sound like that. And I grew up in Brooklyn. But if I wanted to talk like all my friends who talk like this, how you doing? Hey, good to see you, Eric. Hey, how are you? Hey, forget about it. Yeah, I mean, those guys were my neighbors. But I didn't talk like that. Anyway, what else? Yeah.
For like the timbre of the voice that you're trying to get, like a motion, but you can't quite reach it, do you use like pitch modulation like they do on South Park? Or like if...
You mean process it?
Yeah, like, or a child has hit puberty, like for Adventure Time.
Right.
Would you recast, or would you just use pitch modulation to get that timbre, or what?
We've done some fun things, especially on like Yu-Gi-Oh! With like monsters. I played a character once that, we pitched him down a little bit to make him scarier, but it was obvious that we were doing that. Like, it just becomes beyond human. But no, most of the young boys we cast are women actors. So their voices will not change unless they start really smoking. But that's what happens with a lot of times you cast kids doing voiceovers as they grow up, and W.C. Fields, who was way too old for any of you guys probably remember, but he used to say, don't work with children or animals, which I totally believe. Cast an adult to play a kid, especially if it's voiceover. Cast an adult.
Like Nancy Cartwright.
Yeah, but she's even playing like a boy, but like, Veronica Taylor, my good friend Veronica Taylor is Ash.
Yeah.
Her voice never changed. I mean, and then she even was doing a boy voice where, like a tough boy voice. You can get, like Elisa Ortiz or whatever, she can read really high, register. That could be a little kid. But her voice is not going to change, so I prefer to do that rather than play around with pitch shifting. But that's the other thing too, is that when someone has an option, then they go and push that stupid button. Way before Pro Tools and way before pitch shifting and all of that sort of stuff, it was what it was. I've worked with more producers that are like, she's not sounding young enough. Can we just raise her like a quarter tone? Really? A quarter tone? You're going to tell me that, and that's where you give them what's called the producer's switch, right? Just move this up, you'll change her pitch. How's that? Much better. It does absolutely nothing. Is that better? It's a little too much? How about that? Yeah, that's much better. Okay, great. Go get a real job. You know what I mean? Like, come on. It's because it's an option, they asked for it. And that's very annoying. All right, very good question. All right, yeah. Yes?
Do you do any certain vocal exercises to start off?
I do a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I usually have like a rev up before what character, like a phrase I might say, just to get into the thing. But in terms of like opening up my voice, I don't like to start recording before like 11 o'clock in the morning because my voice can get very deep and very froggy. And it needs to open up just from speaking. I drink a lot of black coffee, which everyone's going to be like, oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And then, of course, if it's late at night, I drink scotch, but that's a whole different story. Hey, it works, and it loosens up the stuff. But, it's all about keeping the hydration. And then when I drink coffee, I don't drink it with milk, because dairy will cause mouth clicks. Not good. Very annoying to engineers. But black coffee, and caffeine does a little bit too, but I need the warmth. So tea, coffee, stuff like that. But I don't sit there going like, mom made me moo, mom. I don't do that stuff. And you might hear, there's a lot of voice actors that will give you their whole, they're doing stretching and, they run a couple of laps and things like that. And I respect that, that's all great, but that doesn't work for me. And because I'm also a singer, I kind of know how to take care of my voice. Like I know when I'm pushing it and things and I should take a break. That's also important, is when you feel it starting to go a little bit, stop, take a rest. But I don't have any real exercises that way. But there are good ones, trust me. My sister is a singer, and she was telling me something about pulling your tongue, which is supposed to open up, and I was like, okay. It's a good thing that you work alone then in the booth when you're doing that, because that would just be too crazy. I don't think I can see that, but whatever. But good question. Yes, in the way back.
Do you have a Batman voice you've been dying to try out?
Well, I should have played Batman. No, seriously, because the other thing is I could do the Christian Bale speech impediment if you wanted me to. You know, swear to me. But, you know, Kevin Conroy is still my favorite. I think he does a great job. But honestly, that's the role that I really should have played. I think I really could have connected to it, but, you know, that's my Batman voice. Yeah. And I don't think he should ever yell. You know, but, you know, the first movie, great. The second one, well, all the yelling and stuff like that, you don't need to do that. You're not fooling anyone. We all know your first one. You know what I mean? It's like, if I talk like this, they will know it's me. Well, they will. They still will. They really will. But good question. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Is there anything I can do right now to prepare myself to be a better voice actor later on when I'm an adult?
Do you do any theater now? Do you do any acting?
Yeah, I'm in musical theater at my school.
Oh, you are? Okay, good. The biggest difference between like theater and voice acting is in voice acting, there's no such thing as, we don't allow dead air because there's no visual, you know, filler. You know, if I were on stage, I could leave gaps between what I said. But not in audio. We talk all the time because if we leave a gap, then you change the station, right? So the pacing is different. So one thing to look at is, okay, what am I doing on stage? What are the beats I'm taking? Am I holding for laughter? Or especially in musical theater, it's, you know, that timing, the physicality, right? Audio is so much different. So listening to commercials, I watch more commercials or listen to them more than I watch television shows. There's only a couple of shows that I'm addicted to, and I watch that. I just spent 2 weeks with Michael Rooker in Australia. So we were doing a little Walk of Dead together. But that's my addicted show. But I listen to the commercials. You know, even if it's on the TV's on the other room, to hear pacing, to hear what people are doing. And that's something to study. Listen to inflection. The subtlety of the way inflection works, when you're given a piece of copy, that's what we call scripts in advertising, and you read it like now you're not a human being and you're just reading words, it's like you forget your natural way of speaking. But inflection means so much. If you say it, if you raise your register in the wrong place, it makes no sense. Like, throw me my hat down the stairs is better than throw me my hat down the stairs, or throw me my hat down the stairs, you know, right? Right, so inflection is important too. So, you know, you close your eyes and you listen to those things, and you're gonna really get a sense of pace and inflection. And even the best actors that I've ever worked with, some of the best stage actors ever, have a hard time removing themselves from the pace of being a theater and movie actor and being an audio actor, straight voice actor. So hopefully that was. Yeah.
Should you lose your voice, what's the best way to get it back?
Stop talking. No, everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna whisper. Whispering is terrible for your voice if you're starting to lose your voice. I use an herbal remedy if I feel a little bit coming on. It's called Singer's Saving Grace. You get it at Whole Foods. You can also order it online. I will warn you now, it's all herbal. There's nothing, it reduces the swelling rather than masks the pain. See, when you mask the pain and then you play through it, like we use a sports analogy, then later on you realize your arm is no longer connected to your shoulder. So you don't want to go, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore, I'll just keep going, it'll do more damage. This actually naturally reduces what's getting inflamed. So that's a secret. Tea, honey, all of that stuff. But take a break. Don't just, you know, even if it's a day off, it will help. Because it's just getting worn out. You know, you could look in the mirror and go, oh my goodness, look how red my throat is. You know, it's inflamed, I gotta let it chill out. But that's what I would do. Not whisper. Good question. All right, yes?
How did you get started working for
Well, I used to direct myself and some of the other actors when they had subcontracted studios. So when they then formed their own production company, they called me and said, we need to fill staff here. Do you want to, since you're directing our other actors and you direct yourself, would you like to come in and direct one of our new shows? And that's when they hired me to direct the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's how I started there. I worked for them as a freelancer, as as an actor and a director, but that's how I got on staff. So that's the way they got me. They got me. Yes. Who hasn't asked a question yet? Yes.
When you're a director, do you also help with
Bless you.
editing, like with voice acting? Do you help with the editors, like going through the script and through the?
It depends on the shows. A lot of times my role is the last, step before it gets to the producer. So the script comes in, and as I'm recording each actor, I might take some notes and say, this actor has no idea how this character should speak. The lip flap on this is overwritten line, or he called the guy this in this sentence, and he called the guy this in this next sentence. Because remember, when you're working on a network television show, you have a deadline of delivery. So a 20-minute show would take me at least 2 weeks to write, okay? Line by line. But I've got to deliver 2 shows a week. So I can't write each episode. So they assign different episodes to different freelance writers, which is why sometimes there's continuity problems. And it's up to the producer to tweak them. And it's also up to me as the director to catch them even before they get to the producer. But I don't like to, I've written some episodes from scratch, and that's fun, but what I find I'm much better doing is I'm much better at tweaking as I'm directing. So I can fix while we're going, rather than trying to come up with a new storyline. That's just too much time and not as much satisfaction as what I do. But yeah, I have, and because I was a senior voice director for so many years, I had input on casting, I had input on a lot of the stuff, and even some of the music stuff. But that's just because of years and years of doing that. So it really depends on who you are and also what the relationship is on the show. But that's a good question. All right. Yes, yellow.
Which voice is your favorite to do, and which one is most difficult?
Well, the voice that's the most favorite to do, probably the most favorite to do is James, because he has the most range and he's a lot of fun. I mean, I get to talk like this, and I get to talk like this. So that's fun, all the silliness that he does. The hardest voice I probably had to do was, Dr. Z always screams and talks again. Which when I auditioned for that show, they were like, it's very Pokemon-esque, so we want to use a lot of the actors from that show because we like you, but we can't assign you the roles that are similar to the ones in Pokemon, because then it'll become really obvious that Dinosaur Kings ripped off Pokemon. So, did I say that out loud? So, of course, there is a Team Rocket, and Sean Schemmel is playing James as my, he's doing my voice in another character. If I had played that character, I would have used that voice too. So we were trying to mix it up, and so they were like, well, why don't you play the lead villain? I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Play the lead villain. And then we were like, well, we need to come up with a voice that's not going to be recognizable. I'm like, all right. So I said, well, how much does this character talk? They're like, not a lot. It's like, he sets up the show and he finishes the show, so you can do that crazy voice. So the first episode comes along, and it's like monologue after monologue. And I turned to Darren, who's directing it, and I was like, dude, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, yeah, this character talks a lot. So what would normally be like, we booked you for 3 hours, I'd be like, yeah, that's going to be an hour today, and then maybe we'll do an hour 3 days from now, because after that voice, I don't think I can do many others. So yes, those are the two. Good question. All right, yes, in the back. If you're just a great actor, your own voice is going to be your best weapon. I mean, if you want to try to compete against all of the various actors out there that can do so many characters, great. If it doesn't come naturally, You don't need to have so many things in your little bag of tricks. Just be really good at that voice. We all know there's a lot of voice actors out there that you recognize like that because they keep using the same voice in every show, right? Okay, maybe they're good actors, so that's what it is. So they're still working, but you don't have to do a million different voices. Now, if you're trying to accomplish something, like the question before about I want to learn English accent, and you want to add that, then yeah, you can start to really dig and study. But I think we all know kind of comfortably what we can do. What the big you know the joke, don't play any Stairway to Heaven when you're in the music store, no Stairway? Well, I have that same theory with Christopher Walken impersonations. I don't care if you think you can do Christopher Walken better than anybody in the world, stop doing it. Because everyone does it, and I don't. And so I don't even try. And so it's like, yeah, that's not my thing. There's too many guys that do it, that's not my thing. Right? But if I had to do Casey Kasem with American Top 40, I can do Casey Kasem. You know what I mean? It's like, that I can do, because that's where my voice is. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. Good question. Yeah.
So as being on both sides as a director and an actor, what were some of the biggest difficulties you as an actor had with directors and you as a director had with actors?
As an actor, when a new director, and I don't mean like it's a new person I've never met before, but when a green director is thrown onto a show that I've worked on for years because they're moving staff around, and that person now either doesn't know what they're doing or trying to put their own name on it, and it's wrong, it's not the way we've been doing it, and there's a reason why the show's been on the air so long, that's frustrating when you know more than that director. But a lot of times you just gotta bite your tongue. As a director, I've worked with some tough actors that have given me a hard time because it has to be their way. And because of where I was on the list in terms of staff there, I've said to actors, you can either listen to me or I'm going to recast you. And they go, okay, what do you want to do? Because money talks. So, I mean, there's been situations where I've had to do that. So, I mean, you know, it's like crazy, it's almost like dating. It's like, wow, this is really going badly. How am I going to get this to work out? What are we going to talk about? I have no idea. It's a short role. I won't have to work with this person for another, no. So, like, you just have to get through it, you know? Sometimes think about a beach somewhere else, right, while you're doing that. But yeah, there's no specifics. Most of it is just the dynamic of people. Some are easy to work with and some are not. So there you go. Yes. Oh, you already had one. Let me give it to her. Yeah, read it.
When you're preparing for a role, like for an anime, when you're redubbing it,
Right.
is it important to research all the stuff about this character that you're playing beforehand? Or is it better to just go in?
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I never read any script before I worked on it, unless I was directing it, ever. I never knew what I was doing until I walked into the booth. Now, if I were directing it, we get a thing called the Bible for every show. It's a thick, thick book of every character and the potential relationships between characters. The world they came from that we don't even talk about in the show, just in case you needed to think about that when you were thinking about how they speak. So there is that side of it. But the majority of the time, no, that's not what I do. That's not what I do. You get sides. Sometimes when you're auditioning, they give you a little blurb about who they are. And it's up to the director to steer you in that session. So tell me about this guy I'm going to play today. Is he a tough guy? Did these two guys not get along? You know, or as you're going along, they go, okay, this guy you're about to meet in this bar, just so you know, you guys are going to get in a fight at the end of the bar, so there's tension. That's up to the director to steer it. We just didn't have the time to research that stuff before we did it. All right, we got a couple more minutes. What we got? Yeah, blue shirt.
What's the most difficult person
That would be Robin Leach, who told me he only did one take, and I said, not today. But I'm not going to impersonate him. Yeah, no, there you go. But that is, yeah, the back.
When you're voicing a Pokemon,
Right.
and is it hard to get across your emotional intent when all your dialogue is just one word?
No, not at all. No. It really isn't because it's all about that inflection and stuff like that. Do you remember on Kirby's Sword Knight and Blade Knight, the other two, the assistants to Meta Knight? So I played those guys too, right? And one of them spoke nonsense, and the other one translated. But on my script, it said what the nonsense was. So if he said, like, come on, we got to get out of here and go rescue Kirby, it's like, it's all right, it's not wrong, it's not right. And the other guy goes, what he's saying is, we've got to go and rescue Kirby. He would translate, but it was written out in English, and so I just kind of made up nonsense based on inflection of what was going on. Is that easy to do? I don't know. It's just something that I do. But with the Pokemon, ow, yay, all of those kinds of things that are the emotions that are going on, you just, even though we have little syllables to work with, it's the same kind of thing. It's pitch. You know what I mean? I think you could probably do it. Right? But you couldn't do Squirtle's water gun attack. Yeah.
As a director, do you have any say into like putting director's notes on the disc or transcript notes? 'Cause that's something that's been missing for a little while. I'm kind of wondering.
As a director, I do write notes on my script to give to the producer. Producer always has final say on that stuff, but I can give them, if a line is not working, I can rewrite it and do it as an alternate so that I can say, hey, I'm going to put another line in here that I think is better, but I did record it as written, just, so that you can always go back to it if they disagree with you. But yeah, no, you can give notes. I mean, the director is the producer's lieutenant. He's the guy that's there, like, I'm in the trenches. The producer's back in his office working on something else and writing and tweaking and looking at everything, the video, all of that stuff. I'm supposed to make sure that when I get it to my producer, I've not just followed the numbers and just done what it says, because it'll just be more work for him if he goes, well, why didn't you catch this mistake? Or this is a terrible line. Why didn't you say something to me? Oh, I did. I recorded this one. Oh, thank you, Eric. That's why you're doing what you're doing. But yes, directors should have that ability to give notes. Not that they'll always be followed, but that's part of your job. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Let's make them as good one. Yes?
I just recently got a hold of my own little, capture card to make my own shows, like on through YouTube and whatnot.
Good.
My games and stuff. And I only have like a certain pitch of sound that I could really do all my voices with it. And is there any way that you can kind of like go higher than what you actually are, like even as a singer? Like, is there some notes that you just really cannot reach no matter what? Or is there like an exercise where you could possibly increase that range? Because I feel like, to do a variety of voices by myself, even though I don't have a lot of help with me.
Right.
I could,
But you're still going to have your range. I mean, yeah, there's definitely there's high notes that I can't reach at all. But you're definitely going to have your range. But you can also cheat by giving them accents and dialects if you want. And you can play around with it too. We're talking about Pro Tools. You can pitch it up a little bit, pitch it down a little bit if that's going to help you. But if they're all the same character type, then they're not, just going to sound like a lower version of it. You know what I mean?
do you as a director, like, writing down all your notes and stuff, like when I'm writing my scripts, usually it's kind of difficult for me to like make something makes funny because how do you feel like going into something how you know that people are going to laugh at it? Like, how do you feel like?
Well, I mean, that's the art of being a good comedian, right? But I will tell you, it's nice to have another set of ears. So if you've got someone that you respect that's funny or has a good sense of humor, read it to them. But remember, everybody's got an opinion, right? But try to get a majority opinion. Try to get like, your 3 best buddies or whatever. See what they think. And don't say, I want your feedback. Just, like make it official. Just go, hey, I want you guys to see what I just did. And then after they've watched it, say, I'm interested in your feedback. Or see if they laughed where they're supposed to laugh. That's the gauge. That's how comedians do it, stand-up comedians, stuff like that. that when we do the work in the booth, I don't know if you're laughing at my jokes. I don't know until you come up to me here and say the frying pan line that you thought that was funny. How would I know? I didn't have an audience response. So you've got to get feedback from that. All right, we've got 5 minutes, right?
No, we're done.
We're done. Last question, because you've been holding your hand up real quick. No, this right here. You.
How long has it took you to perfect your voice?
Oh, I don't have a perfect voice for my characters. I learn every day. It evolves like Pokemon. All right, thank you guys.